All right, welcome everybody. This is Brian Smith with another edition of a little bit of recruiting talk, and Florida's the conversation piece today. Zach Goodall from All Gators on Sports Illustrated joins me. How you doing, buddy? What's going on?
I'm doing good. Season is basically wrapped up. We've got a bowl game left, and I feel like I'm working even more than I did during the Gators' entire 6-6 season, which is a testament to how bad of a season it was and how busy it is now. So I can't complain.
Yeah, fair enough. What is it that you think is the best attribute right off the bat about Napier? I mean, I don't know much about the guy, but he was highly sought after. He had options. LSU called him, etc. What do you think? Just initial thoughts.
Well, I can look at it comparatively because this is the second head coach I'll cover at Florida, and the last one, good X's and O's guy. I think everyone and their mother knows that if they watch a Dan Mullen football team. Not a guy with a great big plan for the program. All he really does is game plan. Napier's come in, and it seems like he has a vision. He demanded a lot out of all the schools that he talked to, especially when it comes to support staff, coaching staff salaries, obviously facility upgrades. That's something that enticed him about Florida because they're in the midst of finishing a $85-some million facility to catch up with the times. All of these things were really important to him to have a complete and total foundation. And from there, he wants to, kind of burn it all down with what Dan Mullen was doing and his lack of a recruiting plan, his lack of finding elite assistants to help him on the recruiting trail and within game planning. He wants to tear it all down and build it right back up. And I think that's big. Florida fans aren't really known for being patient. I think that they're going to need to be just even for the first year. This is a transition, not just a transition recruiting class, a transition year from a program, from a culture that I'm not afraid to say it was a broken culture and program in Dan Mullen's fourth year. I think everyone kind of knew going back to last December when they made it to the SEC championship game, and Kyle Trask was a Heisman candidate. Kyle Pitts was a Heisman candidate as a tight end. Like
That's
Dan Mullen wanted to turn this into momentum to get an NFL job. It was basically reported as such. And he didn't get that. Ever since then, it seemed like Mullen had kind of checked out. Recruiting wasn't taken seriously. He lost a couple of key assistants and made some hires that were questionable at best. Things just did a 180, and we saw the results on the field. My biggest point when I talk about Dan Mullen and what went wrong, everyone likes to say he wasn't a great recruiter, and you could just look at rankings and think, okay, yeah, that's true. I get that. But it became even more apparent how big of an issue it was because year 4 of the Mullen era was the first time we really saw his recruits take over the team. First off, that seems like a bit of a concern to me because that's 4 years in and you're finally seeing a roster primarily of his recruits. Where were they the past 3 years? You should see some guys kind of breaking in. And then in year 4, you see the team filled with his recruits go 6-6. What does the future look like at that point? Not promising, especially because you see, again, the recruiting rankings just weren't good for this year. There really wasn't any foundation built within recruiting for a Dan Mullen football team to find success in the future, to turn things around from this season. And that's why they had to pull the plug. And with Napier, he's come in, he's preached, I'm going to utilize every resource I can get. Florida has reciprocated that approach by giving him the resources he needs. And now he's just going to build it from the ground up. I think you've got to at least respect the vision until you see how it comes to fruition.
Well, that leads to the obvious question. He's a strict guy, in my opinion, from what little I've gained from people I know, a little more militaristic. Dan is Dan. He has his own category. He's a goofy guy. He is goofy. He's smart as all get out. But how it's applied was iffy at best. And I know that's what you were trying to say in your commentary. He didn't relate well to a lot of people. Just didn't.
Right.
Napier, on the other hand, has the task of filling out his coaching staff. It's the most important thing you do in your entire team. I don't care which school it is. It could be USC, it could be Northwestern, Miami, anywhere in between. How do you fill out your staff? His background, I don't know a ton about it. I don't know if he's coached on both sides of the ball, but he's been at Clemson and Alabama. Those are good starting points.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you will. The cultures at those programs, top notch. What do you think is going to be his focus? He got Corey Raymond from LSU, which I'll talk about in a second. That is humongous. And by the way, I'm going to blast LSU. I found out something about that in regards to why he came to Florida in a moment. But who else is he targeting, or have you heard anything on the staff situation?
Yeah, there was some momentum, especially around when they hired Corey Raymond, that he wasn't going to be the only big name guy that they bring in. And, I've continued to hear a couple of big names, some familiar names. I think everyone around Florida Twitter and Florida football has been excited of the possibility of bringing back, and you're going to have to forgive me for not knowing how to pronounce his name because I wasn't here when he was last in Florida, but I believe it's Juwan Sider, Penn State running backs coach.
Okay.
He was here at Florida. First year Dan was hired. He was here the year before, actually, on McElwain's staff.
Okay.
Immediately in his 1 year here, amazing recruiter. A part of like 5 of the top 5 or the top however many rated kids in Florida's signing class that year. Set the foundation. Dan Mullen was still using Juwan Sider's talent this past year. And he's rumored to be a part of this staff, possibly. There have been apparently some negotiations going on, but nothing has come to fruition quite yet. Tosh Lupoy is another one that's been rumored a lot. I had Demetrius, who works with me on my site. He also covers the Jaguars, interviewed Tosh one-on-one. And he gave Napier a lot of respect, but said, I'm focused right now on the Tennessee Titans and how the Jaguars can play this week. Spoiler alert, they didn't play well. But Tosh did not deny any possible interest in joining Florida. He just didn't say he was either.
Great.
So, those are the 2 guys that I've heard the most, and I think a lot of Gators Twitter has heard that too through the rumor mill, through seeing it, I guess, on message boards and whatnot. But right now, there is a little bit of a lack of momentum. Napier has brought over several guys from Louisiana. I think that they're guys that were worth adding to the staff in the capacity that they got. Like Patrick Toney, he's going to be the co-defensive coordinator and safeties coach. He's considered to be one of the hottest up-and-coming names on the defensive side of the ball in college football. The dude's in his very early 30s. Had interest, I think, from Texas Tech to be their defensive coordinator this year, turned it down. Came to Florida, and he's going to be a co-DC with an assistant head coach of the defense in Corey Raymond there to help him. He'll have another co-defensive coordinator as well to help him out as he adjusts to the Power 5. That's a name you like. Darnell Stapleton, he was hired as one of the 2 offensive line coaches that Billy Napier wants to have. The word is the other one is going to be coming directly from the NFL as an NFL offensive line coach, then coming to Florida. So you pair a young coach in Stapleton, who is a Super Bowl winning starting offensive lineman with the Pittsburgh Steelers from about a decade ago. You like the potential of that. I get that there might be some concern of bringing over a bunch of guys from a group of 5 Sunbelt school to coach the Gators, but you get the feeling that Napier wants to pair those guys with great recruiters, with proven coaches at the SEC and or NFL level, such as Raymond, and you understand the vision. Because like I said before, that one of the biggest things for him is putting together this coaching staff, the support staff. Florida gave him, I think, $1.4 million additional dollars in his assistant coaching staff pool compared to Mullen. They've expanded the support staff pool of money as well. So he's going to have the resources to bring in a mix of his own guys as well as the biggest names that he can find.
Well, if they can spend the money to, for lack of a better phrase, fit in with the upper echelon, because like what Georgia's doing with their facilities and stuff is just asinine.
Yeah.
It's kind of like living at the Taj Mahal with weights. I've seen some photos, and they're not even close to it's insane. So every little thing that you do with your staff, et cetera, matters because kids like bling.
Right.
Georgia's just trying to throw money at it. Alabama's facilities are great, and I'm sure I don't know where else they're going to build on that campus. The entire campus is a football facility, it seems like. But you have to do those things if you're the University of Florida to keep up. Are we talking about with Florida's upgrades that you were mentioning? Are they expanding or are they just redoing the space? Like, are they adding more buildings? What's the general synopsis of that?
Yeah, they have been building a new training facility and it's going to have, locker rooms, workout rooms. It's going to be their football center, because right now, if you come to Florida's football stadium, and I know that you and I were there, and then we walked in between their indoor practice facility and the football stadium for their Friday night lights. That's the walk that Florida football players have to do every day to go back and forth between meetings, practice, and all that. This new one is being built on the grounds of the old baseball stadium that they tore down about a year and a half ago. They moved the stadium over to the west side of campus for baseball. It's a really nice stadium, by the way. But they're putting up an $85 million project there. It's going to connect to the indoor facility. It's going to have a garage that opens, and you're on the indoor practice, or you're on the practice fields at that facility. It's supposed to have, a great dining hall. It's going to have a lazy river pool for the players to go hang out at after. There's apparently going to be some other recreational activities in there for the players to enjoy themselves post football. If you think about or just any college student that hangs out at the library all day, whether they're meeting with friends, eating, or obviously studying, this is going to be the equivalent of that for Florida football players. They can do their homework there. They can eat there. They can do whatever they want to. I might be mistaken, but I feel like someone said there could be a recording studio in there, like for extracurriculars when they're done with football. It's supposed to be a state-of-the-art facility. Now, they're still a bit behind Georgia and Alabama because they've had that for several years, and they've probably perfected their facility. But Florida is at least trying to catch up in the arms race, and that's supposed to be open by June. We'll see if it officially is, but that's the plan, is that this 2022 class is going to be the first class that gets to experience it.
Well, if they always put these dates on like a restaurant opening or anything else, they never make it. And there's always something that goes along with code. It's not that they're not done, but being able to open it and matching with the government, it's never good.
And I don't know if this will have any effect on it. I've personally not heard of any dates getting pushed back. Well, you have to think, there was one person that Scott Strickland and the UAA as a whole said had, their fingerprint on building this thing. That person, Dan Mullen.
Oh,
Billy Napier is here now. I mean, Dan Mullen, he autographed one of the pillars inside of the place that's now in cement. So his name is forever stitched onto this indoor practice, or onto this facility. But that joke aside, you have to wonder, Billy Napier is the head coach now. 7-year deal. They have, Scott Strickland said it. They have bought into his vision, even if it requires some patience. He's their guy for the long term. They're going to let him completely rebuild this thing. Maybe there's some tweaks that Billy Napier is going to want to that facility. I don't know, but you would think so, right? He's going to want that to be 100% approved by him and his staff. So he's going to naturally go and take a look. Maybe there will be some tweaks that he wants to make.
I can't imagine it not being that way. He's human.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I do it this way. This is better for my plan.
Right.
If he doesn't, I'll be concerned, to be honest. And they don't have to be significant, but just how the weight room is structured, the order. There could be little things, and players are creatures of habit. If they are not comfortable, they do not maximize. They do not maximize, coaches lose. Coaches lose, They get fired. These things are just big circle. So I'll be curious to see it. I mean, I'm only 2 hours from Gainesville. I'm not that far from you. I'm curious to see. I need to kind of stroll through there soon. I got to head that direction pretty soon. Yeah. Where all are they doing it in conjunction to the stadium? Is it everything still close to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, or is it?
Yeah, it's that walk that we did from the indoor practice facility through the parking lot over to the stadium. That's the distance. So maybe
it's not terrible, but
maybe a fifth of a mile at best of a walk from the stadium. But that's the thing is right now, the players for practice get dressed out in the locker room in the stadium. Now they're going to have, their own parking lot. They may not have to worry so much about the parking tickets that all the players complain about constantly, because they'll be able to park, dress in this locker room, eat, record their music, do their homework, do whatever they want. Practice facility is right there. So it's all kind of centralized. Yeah, the stadium will still be a bit away, but at this point, they're not going to have to be in the stadium any day except Saturday.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if you're going to practice right there, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
I know that schools will never admit it, but one of the reasons they do this, and it's not just Florida, this is across the board. When you have one-stop shopping, as you're alluding to with this facility, the players are all there. What goes on when the players are all there? They see them. They want to know what they're doing. They'll never admit that on their mother's grave. All schools want to know what they're doing because they don't trust them. An 18 to 22-year-old with idle time is a bad thing. They want to know what they're doing. And this is a way to keep it there because free time ends up with phone calls at 1 a.m. So that's kind of it's smart. I'm not going to lie, because every facility is designed that it could be, again, Northwestern, Miami, US, it doesn't matter. They all have that same thought process. Now, the other part of this, recruiting is tomorrow as far as the signing day. Florida's only got 7 commitments. I mean, there's a lot of ways to view that, and I'm sure they're going to hammer the transfer portal. And I'm sure guys like Corey Raymond that they just brought over from LSU, and I'll touch on that just in a moment, they have contacts that are just totally different. Billy recruited a little bit further west. He was in Louisiana. That's as fertile a state as there is. Moving forward, LSU fans are going to hate Billy Napier. I guarantee it. Not just because he got Corey, but I mean, he recruited that state too, and he recruited Alabama, etc. It's going to be interesting what he can do, but I'm just going to start with this, and you can address it however you see fit, because I know the kid personally. Jaden Gibson went on a visit to Oklahoma this past weekend, a bit of a Florida legacy, a dominant receiver. He dominated at the opening out on the West Coast earlier this year. He was definitively the best receiver there, and they've cut bait with each other. I don't know the full backstory, and I don't even think Jaden would tell me. It didn't sound very friendly to me from what little I've heard. So if you want to touch on it, that'd be great. If not, I get it. But what's going on with Jaden Gibson?
Yeah, I think what happened to him is the same thing that happened with a lot of the kids that have decommitted from Florida in the past week. Because here, let me count it up. Like you said, they only have 7 commitments now.
It's not many.
5 of them are linemen. A 6th one was supposed to be a lineman, but he's lost like 60 pounds the past year, and he might be a tight end. And the other one is a kicker. So that tells you everything you need to know about the class as it stands right now. But since Dan Mullen got fired, let's see, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 decommitments. And since Napier got hired, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decommitments, including 2 of the best players in the class. You on the surface, you get it, right? Coach comes in, setting up his vision, wants to take kids that he wants. Transition classes typically never go that well because of all that changing. It makes sense. With Nick Evers, the widely thought to be true idea is that Napier wants 2 quarterbacks in this class. Florida's quarterback depth behind Anthony Richardson, a lot of potential. Not much there, just in general. And Emory Jones, whether he's at Florida or not next year would be his last year here. Napier wants to hit the ground running with 2 quarterbacks, maybe 1 from the portal, maybe 1 from high school, maybe 2 from high school, one way or another. He wants to rebuild that room because he's also going to be coaching the quarterbacks. Maybe Evers wanted to be the only quarterback kid in the commit in the class. Maybe there was a different reason why he didn't come. But ultimately, the 2 couldn't agree on, being an ideal fit for each other. He's gone. In my opinion, not great. I think Evers has loads of potential, and I think he's going to thrive in Jeff Levy's offense at Oklahoma. But again, you kind of get it. It's a loss you take and you move on. You look at Jayden Gibson. He is one where, again, with respect to the process and the vision that Napier has for his recruiting class, Gibson is one of those ones that you just take. You don't do anything about it, but you just take him. You've seen him, Brian. I've seen him several times. Kid is a stud. There's a reason that after his junior year, he suddenly shot up into being like a top 50 recruit in the entire nation. He's got a rare combination of size and speed and skills. Like you said, he's a legacy here in a sense that, his dad played at Florida. I believe he was a walk-on. He was never anyone substantial within the program, but ultimately he played here. So therefore he is a legacy. And those are the types of kids you don't want to miss on. And now I had heard rumors of this before it came out, and then Uncle Luke, the famous rapper turned high school football coach down in Miami. He tweeted about it, so I have no issue talking about it. Apparently, Napier is asking kids for workout videos if they were committed in Florida's class. And people might disagrey with that. Uncle Luke surely disagreed with it because one of his kids did not make it in because he didn't submit a video.
Yeah, I know who he is.
You got to think, none of the kids that have decommitted from Florida since Napier was hired had an offer from Louisiana beforehand. Group of 5, Sun Belt school, just not the same recruits that Florida and Louisiana. They're not going to target the same guys, right? And Napier gets here. He's got a week and a half before signing day. There aren't really any camps going on. There's not a ton of time to crunch a ton of film. He's obviously just not as familiar with these guys. He asked several, if not all, of the commits for a workout video. Just wanted to see what their athleticism looks like, how they operate in drills, stuff like that. And to Uncle Luke, that was preposterous. Like, you can't ask my kid for that. And his kid was one of the lower rated commits in the class to begin with. So I don't know what he's so upset over. I get why Napier would ask that. And I understand with his time crunch and what he's trying to establish here, based with his lack of familiarity with these commits. I get asking for a workout video. There are some kids in particular that you definitely wanted one from, like a certain running back from Winter Park who's not played in 2 years because of his knee. But again, when it comes to Jaden Gibson, I think that he is the one that you look at and you say, I don't need a workout video from this kid. I know how talented he is. I could pull up a huddle highlight video, and even without seeing the bad film, you know this kid can be special. So I don't know. I mean, people will disagree. Like I said, I personally understand why Napier would ask for these workout videos just to get a sense. But if there's anyone that I'd be willing to say, you know, you didn't really need it for these guys, it's definitely Jaden Gibson. And if you just wanted a talented quarterback, then Nick Evers is the second.
That's kind of where I'm at too. So we agree. I mean, holding a line with 17-year-olds, everybody's the same, generally does not work. And it has nothing to do with football, just because every kid is different, sometimes vastly different. And you got to remember, you're talking about recruiting Central and South Florida. You tick off people like that, at some point, it's going to cause you problems. And I know some of the people around Gibson and some of the 7, you irritate the 7-on-7 coaches in this state. I don't care if you're state U or not, and they definitely are. That's really going to bite you. He's treading very thinly. I'm deep into that pool of 7. I know a lot of those guys. That is not going to fly at all, and it's going to cost him. And I'm just, I'm not saying it's right or wrong with the workout video, but doing it across the board, that's concerning for me. All right, well, anybody that it follows Florida recruiting knows there's no dull moment. This is the number one theme right here. You have a lot to talk about. A couple of kids that I want to ask about. Jamarion Burt. It's another kid I know well. He's from Ocala. He's at Forest High School. Did he visit this past weekend? What's going on with him?
I didn't see him. Did he do an official visit to Florida beforehand? I'm not sure.
They did another one because of the coaching change. That's the new rule. So
that's true. Yeah. Well, he did not take one this past weekend.
Okay.
Jamarion Burt, talented kid. I think he was viewed by the coaching staff as more of a project, at least the last coaching staff. And in fairness, at that time, they also had Julian Humphrey committed and were definitely in the mix for Azareyeh Thomas. So I get taking him as a second, possibly third corner. But all of a sudden, he was the number one corner in Florida's class upon the transition. Right. And he didn't even want to stick around for that. He was the first decommitment after Dan Mullen got fired as well.
I saw that.
I'm personally not too sure what's going on with him there. It doesn't seem to me like Napier's staff has a ton of interest right now. But, I mean, just right off the bat, based off resume alone, if there's a coach on the staff you're going to trust when it comes to recruiting, it is Corey Raymond. So
he coaches the position potentially because he's a safety or a corner. He's an athlete now. He can run.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I'm curious. I'm almost withholding judgment on this recruiting class until we get to February. I know that obviously it's a time crunch. There's going to be some kids signing this week, but I think Florida's hopeful, and rightfully so, that with all of this, insane coaching carousel that's gone on in the past several weeks, there's not going to be a huge rush to sign your entire class this Wednesday. Feels like it's going to be a lot of bleeding over into February. You mix it in with the million kids that are sitting in the transfer portal right now. And it's tough. I couldn't reasonably expect Billy Napier to come in and suddenly just flip these 4 and 5 stars in a week and a half. And there's some momentum being built for some. I mean, they brought in a couple of kids this past week. I think that Sean Washington, the Georgia commit, defensive lineman who is from Louisiana, he knows Billy Napier, he knows Corey Raymond in a capacity. Yeah. I think that he's got a chance to flip. I'm not willing to say I'm confident Florida can land him, but I'm willing to say I think Kamari Wilson is going to give Florida a second thought after his visit this past weekend. Again, they're competing with Georgia. Georgia is Georgia. I would still say that the Bulldogs are favored here, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Kamari Wilson's thinking about this till the last second. He was recruited very hard by LSU. LSU was a top 5 school of his. Who was one of the recruiters at LSU for him? Corey Raymond. Yep. And he's a kid not only that goes to IMG, but he is from the state of Florida, from Fort Pierce. Oh, and another guy that they just hired to their support staff, Jamar Chaney. He was here a couple of years ago. He was recruiting Wilson at the time. He went to Mississippi State. They're both from Fort Pierce. They're both very close. That's another one for Kamari Wilson right there. All of a sudden, Florida's got 2 guys on their staff hired within a week that are probably the 2 best guys you could have hired if you want to get Kamari Wilson into your class. I get it. Florida fans are very pessimistic there because Wilson is supposed to be a dog. There might be a chance. There could be a chance.
He's a hell of a football player. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, he is.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Florida just doesn't get anybody from IMG. Like, have they ever signed a player from IMG? Like, it's been a consternation point with a few Florida fans I've talked about, but somebody said ever. And I'm like, come on, there had to be somebody. It's in your own state. I mean,
I think they did. I can't remember who. It was before my time here. But I swear I've seen that someone from IMG is signed to Florida. But in the entire Dan Mullen era, no one did. The only one that did was Kamar Wilcoxon, and he wasn't at IMG anymore. So he reclassified instead of going back to Stevenson High School in Georgia and just enrolled on the spot. So he doesn't even really count. But if we're going to cheat, he is technically the only kid they've gotten from IMG in the past 4 years.
Just a generic statement, regardless if Mickey Mouse is the head coach at Florida, that's ridiculous.
I agree completely, because they've been in the running, right, for all of these kids. You look at Kamari Wilson now.
Tyler Booker.
Tyler Booker was the biggest miss of them all, in my opinion.
Good player. Man.
Xavier Sorey when he transferred there. Lavassier Carroll and who's the running back this year? Penn State commit.
Katron Allen.
Katron Allen. Yeah. All of these guys, Florida was in the mix for at major positions of need, no less.
Yes, sir.
Missed on all of them.
And that's one of the reasons Dan Mullen is unemployed. But
correct.
The other kid I just wanted to touch on is, I want to try to say this, Azareyeh Thomas, I assume that's how he pronounces it, plays at Niceville, arguably the most rabid fan base of high school football guys in the state of Florida, up in the Panhandle. Florida at one point was considered the leader, for whatever that's worth. Obviously, the coaching change throws things in a wrench. I have quite a few connections around that situation, and they're all telling me it's going Seminoles' way. I know that the head coach there, Mike Norvell, took his staff over to see Thomas and his mother, and she was impressed by it, like the staff, not like 3 guys, like everybody. Has Florida been in home with him, or is there any news there? Or is it this just going to be a Seminoles deal on Wednesday, and that's all she wrote?
I don't think Florida's been in home with him yet. I saw Azareyeh posted his his FSU picture from his visit.
Yeah, I did too.
Someone quoted it, and they said with laughing emojis in quotes, "workout." And I thought, Uncle Luke. I mean,
oh boy.
I find it very interesting about Azareyeh Thomas because I think he's been recruited to Florida as a corner pretty much this entire time. I think he was recruited to LSU as either a corner or a safety. They weren't really exactly willing to pigeonhole him. They would have just taken him regardless. So they get Corey Raymond over from LSU, yet he doesn't continue to be a priority prospect for Florida. That was kind of weird to me. I don't know if it was tension between the two parties. Maybe Azareyeh was one of those people that did not like being asked for a workout video, if that's what happened. In which case, he's another one that you start to wonder, maybe they should have just said, you know what, we're willing to take you because we need you. I'm not totally sure. I don't mean to bash the kid or whatever, and I've never seen him in person myself, except for at Friday Night Lights in a camp setting. And in that camp setting, just my opinion, I wasn't thoroughly impressed with his athleticism and his lateral ability, something that I personally would have liked to see more. But then again, that's just my opinion. Billy Napier wasn't here for Friday Night Lights, so he doesn't know if he looked good or bad in that situation. I guess all I can really say is that I don't think that's a sustainable way to land recruits, is asking them for workout videos. You've really got to hope that that's only a part of this transition class, just to familiarize yourself with who you're trying to get. But that's not going to work out long term. I think you and I both agree on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
The staff, how soon do you know, for recruiting sake, if nothing else, does he have a definitive plan, or is he just taking guys as he can get them, and he's just kind of like, it is what it is? Because I get your point about the first signing day. Mm-hmm. Completely understand. There's a second. There won't be that many players available, but there's also the transfer portal and the junior college ranks. Florida doesn't dip into the second category there very often. I bet you they do this year. I bet you they get at least one or two. It's math. You have 85 spots. You need to fill them. And in the SEC East, if you don't fill them, you get smacked. So I would imagine there's going to be some of that. But are there any other names or anything like that? I don't really care who they are, but is he trying to get it done by a certain date or anything? What have you heard on that?
I don't know a certain date in mind, but I have a feeling that once early signing day comes and goes, there should be a domino effect to fill out the remainder of the on-field staff. I feel like there's only 5 spots left to fill there.
So he's halfway home. Okay.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, there have been some candidates from the NFL level. Maybe those guys are trying to finish out their season, or at least get to the point where, you look at Tosh Lupoy. If he is truly a candidate for Florida or any college coaching staff, the Jaguars were just eliminated from the playoffs on Sunday. So he's at the point now where he can probably very easily consider making a move, not even finish the season and get there. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, but at least that makes sense at this point. The offensive line coach supposedly is going to come from the NFL. I'm not exactly sure who it is, but situationally, he probably needs to get out of the work he's doing at the NFL level in order to get here. And if he's not on a playoff team, then that means at the latest they'll be here at the very start of January. They get a month and a half or so to work towards the National Signing Day. At least they get some time. Any other coaches? I'm not really been tipped too well. Everyone's eyes right now are going to be on Sider. What happens there?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if Florida can get him, because that buzz has certainly died off in the past couple of days, everyone on Gators Twitter was talking about Sider last week. My immediate thought is, if he's going to come, I would imagine he's just trying to get pen to paper with the kids for Penn State right now and makes the move after. But I'm not totally sure.
Well, it sounds like the one thing he's doing is not just making a hire to make a hire, because that'll get you fired faster than anything. You must establish your coaching staff, and I get it, and I understand that the need to, shall we say, get it done as quick as possible for recruiting. But you got to get the coach first. So good for him on that, and that'll take care of itself. All right, let's transition to the other thing. This is ironic. You and I were talking about this before we came on the show. Took 20 minutes for the Gasparilla Bowl to sell out, and it's obviously not a major, quote-unquote, major bowl. But when Florida plays UCF, it's news. The last time, I believe, was 2006 or something like that. And obviously the programs are in totally different situation. 2006 Florida team was pretty good. UCF, not so much then. They were just a team. The situation now, the first question is, will Florida be motivated? I know they've got a couple of guys. Carter's opted out. And Diabate's, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Like, those are good football players. Diabate had 89 tackles. I mean, that's a darn good football player. Carter had like 11 and a half sacks, or I can't remember what it was, or tackles for
loss. I think. Yeah, he led the team in sacks though.
Yeah, like 8 sacks, something like that. But good football player.
Yeah,
you cannot lose guys like that, even if the rest of the guys are motivated. And I'm going to flat out call it. They're not going to be. That's my experience with SEC guys. It's the curse. They want to win a championship. They didn't only fall out of that. They weren't in the stratosphere. And there is a coaching change. I mean, anything that can go wrong in terms of just this game, the snowball is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So before we go into the players, what's your thought? Is there any sentiment for this to be a motivating factor or no?
I don't think so. I think the people that are most motivated are the guys that are about to play their final game at Florida. I think Greg Knox is certainly motivated because he has a chance to firmly establish himself as the winningest head coach of all time in college football with a 1,000 or 100% whatever winning percentage. But that's something that Knox has said every time he's touched a microphone in the past couple of weeks is seniors are motivated. This is for the seniors. This is, seniors, we're sending them out on a high note and all that.
Okay.
No talks of the underclassmen. Meanwhile,
that's weird.
All of the underclassmen or everyone that's hit the portal so far, except for Dante Zanders, who's a older guy, went through a position change, probably a guy that probably shouldn't have been at Florida in the first place. All of the other ones, unless I'm wrong here, unless I'm forgetting someone, have been underclassmen. And I told you the other day, it sounded like there was a chance that Diabate and Copeland would play in the bowl. Copeland even said it in his message to Gator fans that he's planning on playing in the bowl. However, I'm not too sure at this point that the guys that you would be surprised are saying they're going to play in the bowl will actually do it. I get the feeling that we might get a couple of surprises down the stretch before this game comes around, where whether they enter the portal, whether they enter the NFL draft, whatever it may be, they may not end up playing. And it seems like a lot of those guys are going to be non-seniors. Napier is certainly purging this roster and this recruiting class to make sure that the fits for his program are there for the long haul. As a result, some guys are going to be ticked off, probably not too motivated to play in the bowl game, even if they are around for it.
True.
Some guys might just say, you know what, I'm out, bouncing, peace, see ya. Gerald Mincy was one of the first ones, and he has seemingly committed to Tennessee. I've not seen any confirmation that he's officially going to go there, but he flipped to Tennessee within like a week of entering the portal, which was, to me, a concern because he was one of those guys that actually had potential to be a starter on the offensive line. Few, very, very few, if any, guys on Florida's offensive line behind the starters could say that, given how John Hevesy recruited over the years. And that could just end up, we could see more instances like that. This is a Florida team that this past year, I just don't think was that motivated in general. They might hate me for saying that. They might say, who are you to say, you're not in this locker room? I watched the play. I went up to the South Carolina game and watched them lose 40-17 to a program in year one of a rebuild. I saw them give up the most points by an SEC team ever to an FCS team the week later.
Yep.
This is not a bought-in, motivated football team this year. I don't care how you try and spin it. And as a result, as the team is going through a coaching change, everyone is looking towards their future, whether they're a part of Florida's future or whether they're not. That is the biggest emphasis for every single one of these players right now. How can they be focused on a Gasparilla Bowl? How can they be focused on trying to end a 6-6 season on a high note? They already beat FSU. That feels like their Super Bowl at this point. I don't think Florida's going to be overly motivated for this game, and maybe that's a damning thing for them. Maybe that indicates how bad the culture's really gotten. But I'm also of the opinion that these bowl games just don't matter in general anymore. It's way too top heavy at this point for any of these games to matter. It's going to matter for fans. I mean, Florida and FSU fans have wanted this game for a long time. And earlier this year, they got it. With the 2-for-1 series that's going to be coming, it's going to be a nice little preview. However, I'm really, really not going to put any weight at all into the result of this game for either Florida because of all their losing and all the changes they're going through, and also for UCF. I mean, they're still going through changes. They just lost their starting quarterback from earlier this year, Dylan Gabriel, to the portal. Gus Malzahn, I'd figure, is probably going to hit the transfer portal pretty heavy again this year. He's still rebuilding what he wants to do. It'll be really motivating for the UCF program to go in and pull out a win if they do so. But I would just stress to people to understand, it's not going to be some massive accomplishment over this Florida team right now, because this Florida team is so far below its standards that it's almost kind of painful to watch.
I would agree. The last thing, and I keep hinting at this, just for funsies, since we were talking about the coaching staff, I was told that Corey Raymond, one of the reasons he went to Florida, and I'm sure they've tried to get him before, LSU underpaid him for a long time, which why you would do that to a very good and loyal coach is mind-boggling. They brought in Davis, a guy that was an O-line coach, and immediately paid him more this last year.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just wonder, okay, he's our top guy. He coaches a critical position, and he's a great recruiter. Let's underpay him. LSU was just a bunch of idiots for doing that. So now they get to go up against him not only when he's in the booth or on the field, whatever he does, but on the recruiting trail. Mark it down. Florida will get at least one kid every year out of the Bayou that the LSU wants, because recruiting is about relationships. People don't want to hear this. People don't pick what's on the helmet. They pick the people that are on the sidelines coaching them. That's just reality. Right. A lot of kids could give two craps about Alabama, but that's where Nick Saban's at. They don't have to necessarily like Nick Saban, but he can help them get to the NFL. They don't care about that number on their helmet or the A or that. They go play for the coach and the coaching staff. So Florida, I have no idea how they're going to fill out their staff, but Corey is a good coach and he's a very good recruiter. That is going to be a boom for the Gators in the long term. And I'm still just puzzled by what the heck LSU was thinking, underpaying a critical piece of your coaching staff. So
yeah, I think he'll end up being the top paid assistant on the staff. And with this extra $1.4 million to spend on-field assistance, can't blame Florida for even throwing him a little more than they needed to, honestly.
Yeah, if you sign a 5-star recruit, it can be worth $50 million to your program because that guy could be on award shows, etc. The risk reward is pretty unique in football. I mean, some kids are busts, and I get that, but you only got to hit on 1 and 3, and then ESPN and all this, all these, it is a business. So, and Corey's going to give you more of those. So it's pretty interesting.
I think he brought in 8. I think he brought in 8 5-stars to LSU, and I feel like 5+ of them hit.
Yeah, he's
landed 2 5-stars during Dan Mullen's entire tenure, and they still got potential. I personally like both of the 5-stars. Gervon Dexter and Jason Marshall can be dominant players in the SEC. But 2 years in, Gervon Dexter's been good, not great, still developing, good, not great. Jason Marshall looked pretty good as a freshman, but still want to see more. So, comparatively speaking.
That's just hilarious. 8 guys. I mean, that's a lot, man. He's a heck of a recruiter. So
he is.
Well, Zach, I appreciate it. We'll preview some of the UCF stuff with Florida coming up in a week or so. We got to get by signing day, and you need to get sleep. I know it's a little bit hard for somebody to go through with an SEC school he's covering that's going through a coaching change. There's really no free time. So I appreciate you coming
on top of covering an NFL team that is on the path to the Super Bowl again.
Yeah, well, that's right. You cover the Buccaneers for Sports Illustrated as well. So yeah, it is what it is, man. You've got busy days ahead this Christmas season. Good luck on your shopping opportunities. They're going to be limited other than Amazon, I would assume. So
that's right. I've already started the ordering. Fine.
Smart man. All right.
Yeah.
Well, for Zach Goodall, I'm Brian Smith. Thanks for joining. I don't know when we're going to do the next one. Hopefully fairly soon with the UCF Florida thing, but it's coming up. So for everybody out there, have a safe day. Take care.